A starving fox collapsed on her porch. Years later, it returned, with something in its mouth that left her in tears. It started like any other foggy morning deep in the woods of northern Washington. Trees stood tall like silent watchers. The damp earth breathed mist into the cold air, and everything felt still, untouched. But that quiet would soon be shattered by a decision that would change one woman's life forever. Her name was Elise, a forestry volunteer. Nothing fancy, not a biologist, not a vet, just someone who loved the woods more than people. She came out here for solitude, to get away from everything. Heartbreak, burnout, the static of city life. But she didn't know she was about to become the lifeline for something wild, and something far beyond her control. That morning, just off a narrow trail, Elise heard rustling. Weak, irregular. She thought it was a bird, or maybe a rabbit, but what she found was a fox. Barely more than a pup, collapsed in the leaves, bleeding, shaking, one eye swollen shut. Its leg was broken, its ribs showing through its matted fur. And even though it should have run, should have bolted the second it saw her, it didn't. It just looked at her, like it had been waiting for her. Elise didn't think. She wrapped the fox in her flannel, tucked it close to her chest, and ran back toward her cabin. 2 miles through brush and mud, heart hammering. She had no formal training, just a wood stove, a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, and a half-remembered conversation with a wildlife rehabber. She didn't think the fox would make it through the night, but it did. Barely. She cleaned his wounds, splinted his leg with twigs and gauze from her first aid kit, and spoon-fed him tiny bits of mashed food over the next 3 days. She named him Ash because of his smoke-colored fur, because that's what he looked like. A ghost caught in the embers of something that almost died. Ash started improving, slowly, day by day. He'd lift his head, lick her hand, twitch his ear. He trusted her, more than he should, maybe more than he was supposed to. For 2 weeks, they were inseparable. She nursed him, spoke to him, slept beside him like he was some wounded child left on her doorstep by the forest itself. And then, he was gone. Elise had stepped out to get water from the creek. When she came back, Ash wasn't there. No blood, no sign of a struggle, no tracks, just gone. She searched for hours, days, but the forest had swallowed him. She told herself it was for the best, that he'd healed, gone back to the wild where he belonged. But the truth? It left her hollow. She had saved a life, but lost something in the process. Time passed. Winters, springs. Elise stayed in that cabin, kept working, kept to herself. Every now and then, she'd think about Ash, wonder if he'd survived, if he remembered her, or if she'd just imagined the whole connection. Life kept going, until one day, years later, everything stopped again. It was a Tuesday. Elise remembers that clearly. It had rained hard all night, and she'd woken to a strange sound outside. Not the wind, not an animal's cry. A sound like tapping. She stepped outside and froze. There, sitting right on her porch, soaked from the storm, was a fox. But not just any fox. A gray streak down his back, a healed scar on his hind leg. One eye still slightly clouded. It was Ash, but he wasn't alone. Behind him were two small fox kits, tiny, wobbling, unsure of their surroundings. And Ash was watching her, waiting. Elise fell to her knees. She couldn't believe it, and yet she knew. Somehow, some part of him remembered. And now, in some unexplainable way, he'd brought something back. His children, his family, to her. Ash didn't stay long. He approached, touched his nose to her outstretched fingers, then turned and vanished into the trees, his little ones trailing behind him like whispers. He never came that close again. But he came back. Every year. Sometimes she'd see him from afar, a shadow at the tree line, a silent observer, watching her, making sure she was still there. And every spring, new kits. Ash never brought them closer than the porch, but he brought them, again and again. Elise never sought to explain it, not to scientists, not to friends, not even to herself. What mattered was this: she saved something once, and that something came back, not for help, but to show her what it had become. It's been almost 8 years now. Elise still lives in that cabin. She still walks the same trails, tends the same garden, watches the same stars. And every spring, she leaves a small dish of water by the steps. Sometimes it's untouched, sometimes it's empty by morning. But every so often, on quiet days when the wind is still, she hears paws on the porch, and she smiles. There are some debts in nature that go deeper than instinct. Some bonds that don't break just because they should, and sometimes, when you give something wild a second chance, it remembers. Elise sometimes wonders why he chose her. Out of all the people, all the places, why her cabin? Why that trail? Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe, just maybe, something deeper. A kind of ancient knowing passed down through generations. She keeps a small box of memories now. A feather, a photo, a drawing a neighbor's kid made of Elise's fox. It's silly, but it matters, because the world forgets things quickly, but she refuses to. And if someday, long after she's gone, someone else hears paws on their porch or sees a flash of gray in the trees, she hopes they'll stop, look closer, and choose kindness. Because sometimes, when you show mercy to the wild, it shows mercy right back.